Hello and welcome back to my channel. Now today, this is the video that everybody has been waiting for. It is my favourite books of 2019. I have had an amazing reading year this year. I have read so many books. I have had an amazing reading year this year. I have read so many books. Hopefully by the time the year wraps up, I'll have read 60 books, which is the most books that I've ever read in a year. I have read quite diversely. I will have another video unpacking kind of my 2019 statistics, but today I thought I would just talk about my favourite books that I've read this year. So these are in no particular order. Most of these books I rated either 4 out of 5 stars or 5 out of 5 stars, and these are the real books that kind of stuck out to me this year, and I think they're going to be hopefully future favourites, maybe future rereads. This doesn't include any rereads of any books that I've done this year. These are new books that I've discovered that I think are my 2019 favourites. The first book that I am going to say is This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. Now this is a non-fiction memoir where Adam Kay kind of tells us about his story about working as a junior doctor in the NHS. It is a series of diary entries where he talks about his experiences and the struggles with working for the NHS. If you don't live in England, you might not know that the NHS is our national health service where anybody can access healthcare for free. However, that healthcare service under recent years has become under a lot of strain, and there are a lot of problems in the NHS. And Adam Kay's book kind of really touches on that story, and it strikes a chord on how the NHS really needs our help, and it really needs investing in. And Adam Kay actually left the NHS. He is no longer a junior doctor, and he tells us why. This story is heartbreaking. He tells us of many stories where people kind of suffered under really tragic circumstances, and there's some really heartfelt moments in there. However, what I really think kind of stuck out with this book was how funny this story was. Adam Kay really brings such an amazing light to like such a bleak situation. You know, he left the job that he always wanted to do. However, it's absolutely hilarious. This book was one of the only books this year that had me laughing out loud. It was absolutely hilarious. And it just tells the stories of real life people while he was working in a hospital. And for anybody who loves the NHS, you must read it. It doesn't read like non-fiction for me. It read like a friend telling a story. I flew through this, and it actually managed to get me out of a reading slump, which was absolutely amazing. I rated this 5 out of 5 stars. I would reread it. It is a favourite. Please read it. So the next book on my list is a book that I would assume will be on many people's lists this year, and it is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. For those of you who don't know, the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, forgot the name then. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo follows Evelyn Hugo, who was once a key 1950s film star, and she selects this kind of rookie journalist called Monique to tell her story to. And Evelyn has lived 1,000 lives. She has had 7 husbands. She's fallen in love. She has been a world-renowned movie star, and for years and years people have been wanting her to tell her story. And now she has picked this rookie journalist called Monique to tell the story. And Monique is living in New York City, and she absolutely has no idea why Evelyn has picked her to tell her story. And Evelyn is like, look, you need to like be careful. I'm going to give you this story, but you need to publish it as your own. You can't sell it to your magazine that you're working for. And it's loads and loads of intersectional kind of little plots that kind of all come together at the end, and I won't tell you how they all come together at the end. However, Evelyn Hugo is just the most beautifully realistic, lovable but hateable but flawed character. She is so complex. You kind of love her, but she's also not perfect. Evelyn Hugo is not painted as a perfect, amazing film star. There are actually like kind of bits in the story where you think, oh my gosh, why did Evelyn do that? But I listened to the audiobook of this, and I really think that it enhanced the experience. This book has some LGBT themes in it, and it's so well woven into the story. You know, sexuality isn't a plot point. It's nothing like that. It is LGBT representation woven flawlessly into a historical, yeah, a historical setting really. I absolutely loved it. This book felt alive to me. I think about it most days. It is absolutely 100% worth the hype. You should actually read it. If you want to read the audiobook. I really think the audiobook kind of enhances the experience, but yeah, this was another 5 out of 5 star read. So the next 2 books I'm going to kind of put together because it is Heartstopper Volume 1 and Heartstopper Volume 2, which is illustrated and written by Alice Oseman. And this follows the story of Charlie and Nick, and they are in like year 10, year 11. It's set in a British high school and it's about them falling in love. And it's about one coming out to their friends and family and them having this absolutely wonderfully, amazingly healthy and fantastic LGBT gay relationship. It's amazing. It's such a cutely illustrated book. This is a graphic novel, but they're just so lovely. Like, the relationship is not abusive, it is healthy, it's functioning, and it is reasonable for 2 15-year-olds falling in love. It is absolutely amazing, and this book literally gives me all the feel-goods that you could ever wish for. This was actually originally a web comic, and Alice Oseman started a Kickstarter to get it published, and it is now, she's writing the 3rd volume I think as we speak, and they just come in kind of like bind-ups. But these stories have given me the feel good. I absolutely love all the illustrations in the books. I fly through them every time, but I would love to reread them. They're fabulous. You should read them 100%. Even if you don't love graphic novels, I think you would love these. They're fantastic. The next book is The Language of Kindness by Christine Watson. And I think I read this pretty much soon after This Is Going to Hurt. This follows quite a similar premise to This Is Going to Hurt. However, it is the story of a nurse working in NHS hospitals. This wasn't quite as funny as This Is Going to Hurt. However, it was backed up by a lot of academic research and a lot of kind of what it means to care and what it means to protect the most vulnerable in society and how to protect people when they're vulnerable and they're ill. This is just Christine's story of her being a nurse and working for the NHS and caring for people. It is full of some beautiful prose that really took me back. Some beautiful and respectful prose, and I really enjoyed this book. This is one of the only books this year that has absolutely made me sob. Oh my gosh, there are some moments in there that kind of got me. It's amazing. It's really good, and it really tells you about the state of healthcare in Britain at the minute, and I thoroughly recommend it. There's not really much to say about that. And the next book, we're kind of going on a non-fiction theme. I have read quite a lot of phenomenal non-fiction books this year. The next book this year that I read and I absolutely loved was Becoming by Michelle Obama. I again listened to this on audiobook because it is read by Michelle herself. Oh my gosh, so this tells the story just of Michelle Obama's life really. It tells the story of her when she was at school all the way up until she meets Barack Obama and he becomes president of the United States. Michelle Obama is such an inspirational, such a wonderful woman. And it tells the story of how she met Barack. It tells the story of when he kind of sat down with her and told her that he wanted to take politics seriously. And most of all, it kind of tells us how she made certain decisions in her life that led her to live the way she does today. This book is inspiring, it is heartfelt, it is sad, it is happy. It makes me feel like I absolutely 100% know Michelle Obama and that she's my friend. It helps me to understand the emotions that she was feeling, to have somebody that you love so much run for president but not yourself, and how it is to sacrifice things in relationships when you know that your personal relationship has to kind of suffer while Barack was kind of doing his president thing. This book is amazing, it is well written. Again, I thoroughly 100% recommend the audiobook. It is amazing. I love Michelle, I love her even more now. You need to read this book, it was amazing. Yeah. So the next book on this list is, I've talked about it quite a few times on this channel, is How to Build a Girl by Caitlin Moran. This is kind of I guess a memoir, but not a memoir. It is a story of a girl who is growing up in Wolverhampton in the Midlands, and it's just about her growing up and wanting to be a journalist and wanting to live a life that people in the Midlands in working class Wolverhampton do not typically do. I know because I've read Caitlin Moran's other books that this is loosely based on her own life story, because Caitlin Moran used to live on a council estate in a very working lower class background, and she actually managed to get a job as a music journalist, and she managed to work her way up to have quite an amazing career, and she is now a journalist herself. She's kind of like a public personality, she's an author, she's a women's rights activist. She's amazing, but it's kind of like her mirrored in a fictional story, and I absolutely loved this book. This book was so funny. I come from the Midlands, if you don't already know, and I felt like I could kind of relate to quite a lot of this sort of stuff in the story. What I really loved about this story is that she comes from quite a big family. She's got a lot of little brothers and sisters, and the family dynamic that was represented in this book, and the way they would all kind of sit on the sofa together and watch TV, and how they would like share a block of cheese, and how they would fight, is just like such an accurate but wholesome family dynamic. And it, like, I just loved it. Like, it was really cool. We don't hear of like key family dynamics in books very often, and I really loved the family dynamic in this book. The characters are quite hilarious. They are quite larger than life, but absolutely hilarious. This book I feel like isn't talked about very much, but it is amazing. I really enjoyed it. It was a bit of light-hearted reading, and yeah, it's really great. I'm going to read some of her other books as well. So the next book is Meat Market by Juno Dawson. This is another book that I've read and talked about on this channel, and it is the story of a young girl who is scouted at Thorpe Park to become a model, and she is then kind of accelerated into this very chaotic world of the modelling industry, and how that isn't as glamorous and isn't as wonderful as what it might seem, and how that can have an impact on her college work, her personal relationships, her relationships with her family, but also as well as her health. Like, you kind of see how unhealthy this industry is and how terrible it is. I was lucky enough to meet Juno Dawson this year and hear her talk about this book, and it shows how Juno actually really did so much research into the modelling industry, and how conditions for women and men, young girls and men, are absolutely terrible, and how they are really taken advantage of in this industry. I feel like Juno Dawson kind of really presented the emotions of the main character really accurately, and how the modelling career kind of caused tensions in her life, and how it essentially destroyed her life. Like, she comes from in a part of London, you know, money isn't there, and she can earn such vast amounts of money, and she feels like she can make her family's life just so much better. But also that comes with quite a key price, and you see kind of how it all unravels, etc. This, like many of Juno Dawson's book, was such a phenomenal read. I felt like I loved the characters. There was some overlap with her previous book Clean. A couple of the characters overlap, which I kind of spotted. I kind of love that in her books. Juno is an amazing contemporary British writer who really manages to write about some key hard-hitting topics. I feel like I learned a lot, and I also trust that Juno accurately researched the topic. This book is a really interesting but good read. Yeah, I really loved it and I recommend it. Is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This follows the story of Paige, who is a clairvoyant, and she is living in London, but clairvoyancy is illegal, and Paige is taken away to kind of train and work for the government, but sort of not. It's very complicated. This book is part of a huge long series written by Samantha Shannon. I'm currently reading the third book in the series. However, the first book, whew, was phenomenal. Everything about this book was well written. The story, the characters, I've talked about this book pretty recently on my channel, was a really strong start to a series, and I don't feel like I see that often enough. It was unique, but it played on some key tropes. I just loved it. It was amazing. You should read it. Everybody talks about it. It is worth the hype. Read it. Next book in this series was The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. This was the final book in the Folk of Air trilogy, and it follows the story of, oh my gosh, Jude. I forgot her name. It follows the story of Jude, who was a human who was captured and forced to live in the land of fairy. This is an amazingly political, amazingly gory, amazingly dark fae story that, yeah, is amazing. This was an amazing continuation and finale to the series. You will probably have seen my reading vlog. It was good. It was punchy. Whoa. It was amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I can't really say much more. I can't remember what I rated it. However, it was definitely a stick out moment in the series. And the final book I'm going to give an honourable mention to, sort of, it is part of my top 10, but that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Again, another book that I've recently read, and a book that I think is wonderfully unique and kind of really cool. I really, really enjoyed Ninth House. I thought it was super, super interesting. It follows the story of Alex, or Galaxy Stern, who is kind of involved in this horrific incident. However, on her bedside at death's door, she is offered to go and live and study at Yale University, which is all expenses paid, etc, etc. But she has to have a certain role in keeping the magic societies of Yale kind of in line, in tow. This book is amazing. I thought the weakest part of the story was the mystery element. However, I felt like it was a really, really cool introduction to the series, and it makes me want to read on. I feel like everybody has been talking about this series, which is probably why I've put it in my my books of the year. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I've talked about it loads on this channel. I don't think it really needs any more introductions apart from that. This is one of my 4-star honourable mentions, because although for me it wasn't a 5-star read, I actually feel like it was a really, really standout book of the year. It was well written, although the pacing wasn't as what I want it to be. It was just magical, like the way that Leigh Bardugo described Yale. I feel like Leigh Bardugo is one of my great new discoveries of the year, etc. But yeah, it was fabulous. Go read it. So those are like the top 10 books that I have read in 2019. 2019 has been an absolutely phenomenal reading year for me. I have discovered some great new authors. I've discovered some amazing new books, and I'm hoping that 2020 will be an amazing reading year too. Let me know in the comments down below if you have an absolute favourite book of 2019. I absolutely don't think I actually do. These books are kind of like the favourite books that I read, but I don't have a standalone that is my favourite book of the year. I just have like a selection of favourite books. To me, non-fiction has really, really stood out to me this year. I have read some phenomenal non-fiction and some phenomenal fantasy, but let me know in the comments down below what your favourite books of the year have been and what you're looking forward to reading in 2020. And until next time, I will see you again soon.